Hey everyone, happy Monday. This is episode 47 of the Miami Tech Pod. I'm Cesar, joined with Will and Brian here. How's it going?
Excellent. This is
Excellent.
we're approaching a 1-year anniversary of the show. There's been a ton of activity in 2021. I think, and I don't know if we can attribute all of that success and growth in Miami to the Miami Tech Pod, but we
Some of
can't
it.
not.
Some of it.
Right.
I mean, we've had some big names on. We've stirred up a lot of things. Maybe inspired some people. Maybe inspired some checks being written. But I think we need to start with something that's kind of happening across the country right now. As you know, we're taping this a couple days before it's released, but it looks like cities across America, definitely New York, some in Europe, you're seeing a huge COVID wave with this new variant with Omicron. Do you guys think that this is going to be another moment where cities in the north or San Francisco or wherever start kind of taking a step more into COVID restrictions, into lockdown, and we see another wave of people coming to Miami? What do you think, Brian?
As much as I'd love to say, yeah, this is going to be like a repeat of December 2020, I think the difference now is like there's so many more people vaccinated, like 80% of the country is vaccinated. And if you're vaccinated, COVID isn't as big of a deal. Like it's much milder, right? And so
Right.
I don't think it's politically palatable for many of these jurisdictions that locked down so crazy a year ago to repeat that. They will lock down, but it won't be to the level that they did before.
Yeah, 100%. You'll probably see like mask mandates indoors and things like that, but a little bit more of a change in office in-person policies and all that. But I think political leaders across both parties are pretty anti-lockdown again.
Yeah, I think we'll see a little bit, like you're saying, some more office restrictions. Like I know, like my office is probably going to go back to virtual, after coming back and limited in person, just because if you don't absolutely need to be there, I can see employers sort of, quietly erring on the side of caution, because everyone's figured out how to work remote, right? So,
some people are thriving in it. Will, I know both of our companies are remote and productive. What have been some of the learnings that you've seen in managing a remote team? Is on-chain into it? Like, what's the?
Yeah, no, I mean, we really enjoy it. I mean, for us, like, again, a company that's really born in the middle of the pandemic, it really wasn't like we had much of a choice, first of all. But second of all, even if we did have a choice, we would opt for it because, first of all, the nature of our company, it's all software based. We're building kind of metaverse-y type products. So if you're gonna have a user experience that's based all digital, you need to try to work together all digitally. Our company's spread across the country. So we have a lot of folks in Nevada that work for us on the 3D art and animation side. We got folks in Texas, folks in Florida, folks in New York and California. So like for us, it's great. We're in a really good flow with it. I think you need to learn certain things. Like, again, this is not my first go around as the CEO and founder of a startup. Live Ninja was based in Wynwood, and that was 100% in person. We had no remote employees, so there's two different kind of styles of leadership that you need to employ when you do virtual versus in person. So you learn certain things, like, for example, like I have this like kind of switchboard here, right? There's like audio stuff and things like that allow for, interesting enough, it sounds kitschy. And I got this, by the way, when I was doing the Lessons via Leaders podcast, and I just brought it over. But little things like that, like I just had an all hands team meeting earlier today at 12. And I was playing sound effects like during the meeting. So it's just not like another Zoom meeting, but like if somebody, had something to celebrate, I hit the air horn.
That's amazing.
If there's like, do we need a round of applause?
That's so good.
And then when Alfonso fails to land a joke, I got, where's it? Yeah, that's the one. So like little things like that can make like virtual meetings more fun and stuff like that, and learn how to bond with the team even virtually. But we love it. We're thriving in a virtual working environment. And not to say, by the way, that's a replicant for in person. I know there's a hot debate about that. Like there are certain companies and certain times you need to meet in person, and I think we're doing a good job. Like our entire art team met in LA just a week ago. So like every few weeks they go out and they find a place to meet, and you got to mix that in a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this hybrid approach is gonna stick on, right? And it's also like better for morale. People feel like less pressure every morning to be in a certain place, and they can wake up and start thinking about the problem they're solving that day. But we've seen some shifting to topic here. We've seen some companies that are still embracing in person really make some moves in Miami. All year round, we have had some big highlights of a lot of companies that are taking long-term leases out in neighborhoods in Miami. The last one that we're hearing of right now, and I always want to be careful with how these are rumors. This is probably unconfirmed by the actual company, but the TikTok parent company ByteDance is apparently seeking an office in Miami. That was reported on by Julia Ekison of the Commercial Observer. And it looks like they're going to have a bit of a presence in Wynwood. What are we thinking here? It says they had previously signed a 232,000 square foot office in New York City, and it looks like Miami is going to be another major hub for the company. Going into the future here, right? So, what does everyone think about in terms of TikTok's presence down here in Wynwood?
I mean, look, I think it's going to be great for the local ecosystem from a jobs perspective, as long as they start doing having some product development here, and it's not just an ad sales office for LATAM. Those are great, but we need more products being built, or at least parts of product teams being built here, in order for it to truly juice the local ecosystem. But I mean, I'm long on TikTok. I think they'll be the next $1 trillion company, if they're not already. I mean, the fastest company to 100 billion valuation or something like that ever. Politics aside, that we can talk about that at some other time. But I think they'll splash a lot of cash around Wynwood.
No, that's great for the community in general, and totally agree with Brian's point. By the way, that's not something we talk about often. A lot of times, when I was running Live Ninja, I would go down to Apple's office in Coral Gables all the time, and that was their Latin American, little HQ that they had, but they weren't really building any product. There wasn't engineers there or anything like that. Like Brian is saying, those are great, but you want these big companies that have offices in South Florida to attract really great talent and engineers and designers and things like that. And it's not just another sales or marketing outpost. So yeah, totally echo that sentiment. Hopefully, they'll invest a lot and they'll attract a lot of great, engineers from all parts of the country and the world to, relocate to South Florida. And I think that'll be a big boost to the ecosystem.
Harry Hurst of Pipe made some interesting comment, I don't know, 8-9 months ago, about how they're focusing on these micro hubs or small hubs as their model. And what he said was his thought process was that the logical way to do this is that all your graphic designers are near one of the hubs, all your engineers are near another one of the hubs, and you have these sort of functional competencies in each of these different areas. The company's still distributed, but not completely,
Right.
And that could be an interesting play here if some of these companies, whether it's Microsoft or Ingram Micro, which just announced another few hundred jobs here in Miami, and they start focusing on all right, this is going to be where all the Node.js developers are housed, type of thing, or whatever, Solidity developers, and that could be an interesting strategy for some of these companies as they realize that they can't fit 100,000 people in San Jose.
Let's try to take the other view of that, right? you know, should we, and I'm not saying that I have like a strong stance on this, but like, should we have one foot in like broader impacts to a neighborhood, right? Like, you have a lot of, uh, barbershops and cafes and all that, that when TikTok comes in and says, yeah, it doesn't matter what our price per square footage is, like we want the whole building, like take it, pay it, we'll overpay. It doesn't matter, $100 billion market cap, like we have the capital. I've talked to people that have commercial leases that the moment it's up, their landlord is like, there's no way I can justify keeping you in place. And these businesses are like offset pretty hardcore, but it's not just the actual business, because I understand that there's a level of responsibility that the business needs to have to like project forward increase in cost, but it's also the category of business, right? Like if Wynwood is just a place where really well capitalized funds and companies can pay whatever it is for rent because they want to be in let's call it, what it is, a cool neighborhood. What does that mean for the other kind of ancillary businesses in terms of like price per square footage?
So I think that's a really interesting question from a sort of urban planning perspective, because at some point it stops being cool, right? And that neighborhood becomes just a bunch of office parks like Blue Lagoon, or like parts of Doral or West. No offense to those places, but there's like basically you get these like bland office buildings populating the whole area, right? And like that's sort of the progression if you aren't intentional about designing the neighborhood or working with the developers to have effectively subsidized um, mixed use, right? And that's really what you got to like aim for, right? Because that coffee shop being there is beneficial to TikTok being upstairs, right? That cafe being down the street or that lunch spot, even if TikTok has its own cafeteria inside with a Michelin starred chef, or whatever crazy thing they do, like it's still beneficial to their employees and their ability to attract employees to have these other thing components to the neighborhood, right? And so like if I was some ultra wealthy billionaire who was plotting, the neighborhood's growth, I would say, well, I'm going to give these 8 types of businesses that I like, that these bars, microbreweries, whatever, you know, dry cleaners, all of them subsidized rent, because I'm still making money off of the appreciation of the value of the building. And it's a cheaper way to offer these services to my employees than doing it myself.
Yeah, definitely. And we should have someone from like the Wynwood BID, the Business Improvement District, on the pod, because of, I'd love to get that perspective of it. I know they've had a lot of really thoughtful growth. They've been, super intentional about like height restrictions in Wynwood, not making this, like attracting a bit more of residential. I think there's a hotel that's opening in at some point next year. And they've been really intentional about this like diversified offering over there. But it's something to think about, and I think we should have experts that really really know how to pull those levers and make sure that at its core, it's still an arts district, right? Like you still have, gallerists and the cultural center, and you have, great restaurants and nightlife and all of that. But like, how do you strike that balance to make it, continue to be welcoming for everyone, including, high growth startups, but also, the creators that put it on the map.
I think a great example of one that did that really well is Spotify, right? Spotify has an office in what's that little court? Oasis, right? Which is awesome. So you have like right there in the middle of like Wynwood and that area, you have this amazing outdoor kind of food hall venue, and then Spotify's located there, and they have a stage in the middle of the venue, which is perfectly suited for a company like Spotify to do Spotify events in the middle of Wynwood. So like that's, I think, very much the example I think that a lot of these companies should follow, kind of highlight the best parts of the neighborhood and complement it versus trying to just move in.
All right. Some other topics here. Emerge just announced that Serena Williams is going to be the keynote speaker. Did you all see that?
Yeah, awesome.
I mean that's cool. I just not just because she's the GOAT, like arguably one of the best athletes alive, but it's neat that she is a bigger get than her husband at Emerge.
I think he'll be speaking too,
Yeah,
but on a much smaller stage.
Uh,
But I mean, she's been investing in tech for a while, like, and she's been supporting all sorts of amazing initiatives to get more women or girls into coding and all sorts of startups, across the board. So I'm looking forward to hearing what she's got to say. I think it's going to be one of the more riveting keynotes that Emerge has had in a while.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it's going to be cool, I think, it's another one of those things, right? Like, they've had a lot of kind of big amplifiers, right? Pitbull in the past, Serena Williams, where it puts, you know, this big tech community that we're all building here in Miami on a different scale, right? Because there's a bit of even the biggest names in tech are still big names within a bubble, but when you inject a Serena Williams into it and suddenly, like, maybe CNN is interested in covering it and things like that, there's just more of a amplification of the movement. I think it's all positive.
Agreed. Now, listen, I mean, tech, it's almost impossible for anybody that wants progress in the world to not be involved in tech in some capacity, right? It touches almost everything that we do on a daily basis. It's how we get work done. It's how we connect with loved ones and friends. And tech is at the core of modern day society, and anything we want to do from an innovation standpoint goes through technology. So, I think what's great about Miami and Miami tech is that Miami is becoming a city that's synonymous with progress and like a city of tomorrow. And tech is just kind of being obviously at the epicenter of that. So I think anybody that is involved in the South Florida ecosystem, whether they're involved in real estate or they're an athlete or they're a musician or an actor, they are involved in tech in some way and pushing the city forward through the technology scene, which I think is, something that people should embrace more. This is not like, hey, are you in tech or you're not? No, I think everybody that wants change for the better is involved in tech in some capacity.
Great. And let's move on to our last topic here. Well, actually, there's another one I want to bring up in a bit, but we have a new unicorn. You all see Nancy Dahlberg's reporting in Refresh that Healthcare.com raised $180 million.
100%. Jose Vargas, like, know him well, good friend of mine, good friend of Brian's, incredible entrepreneur, and the founder, or one of the founders of Healthcare.com. Jose is a guy that not many people know about here in Miami. Incredible founder that's founded and sold multiple companies, so many times over. Has had successful exits, and a guy like Jose, he's not on stages a lot or at these network events because he's too busy building companies. And there are a lot of guys like Jose here that don't get the credit or the spotlight because, again, they're just too busy building. Jose is one of the best entrepreneurs we have here in South Florida. Healthcare.com is a rocket ship. So hats off to the whole team there. Absolutely incredible. $180 million raise at over $1 billion valuation. Just insane.
It's kind of bananas. I've known Jose for like 15, 20 years at this point. And I remember when he told me that he was buying the domain healthcare.com for like, I think it was like 2 million maybe, or maybe a little bit less. And I was like, that's absolutely bananas. How did, like, that's so much money, blah, blah. And then like 3 years later, or it was like 3 years later, I think that Obama announced healthcare.gov, which so many people just like typed in healthcare, hit enter, and Google suggested .com first. And he was just like overwhelmed with the amount of traffic they were getting. Yeah. And it was like off to the races from there. Yeah.
That's amazing. That reminds me of a random tangent. A friend of mine was telling me that there's this like guy who has this e-commerce website for selling pillows. And when Trump started highlighting the mypillow.com guy or whatever, he had like pillow.com or something very similar to it. and he saw his actual revenue start like growing like crazy because there's just all of these like MAGA people that thought like I'm gonna start going all in on these companies that support the movement, and his sales went through the roof. But it is still insane, like for all of the optimizing, for all of like the product or engineering chops or like that you have. Some of business is just pretty simple. Like if you have domain authority and can own the space, like that's a big chunk of the battle.
Absolutely. Lead gen is a huge business in general. Like there's so many multi-billion-dollar companies that are built off lead generation and making sure that traffic is funneled into certain places and can provide value to the end user. So yeah, you can't knock it, right? It's top of the funnel.
I mean, that's a much bigger business in South Florida than we realize. Like there's
there's a few.
When we were talking to the co-founder of Swag Up, she was saying how one of her first jobs was at this company that does lead gen for DirecTV and stuff like that. And I had heard of that company years ago. They have like hundreds of people in some office in Sunrise. It's like building out landing pages for cable TV and satellite signups and stuff. Like you wouldn't expect that, but like it's a real business.
Back to Jose's great accomplishment here on healthcare.com. One of the things that is neat about his story is that the company was founded in 2014, and obviously that was clear by the fact that you both have known him for a while, but to have that type of staying power in a market from 2014 and keep iterating, keep growing. I mean, they're up to 425 employees now, according to Nancy's reporting here. And, they, in the last year, helped 5.6 million people find and buy a healthcare product. Those are like real numbers, right? Like that is a big team, a lot of capital, a lot of, like transacting. I mean, good for them.
Yeah, and absolutely, right? Like since 2014, it goes to show you, right? A lot of these headlines out there, show these like rocket ship, like crazy valuations that are oftentimes inflated by market conditions in some case, or, VCs getting FOMO and, pumping up companies. But, Jose is an entrepreneur that builds it for the long run, right? This is sometimes entrepreneurship can be a longer slog and you have to be in the dirt building. So it's just a great testament to sticking through, 7 years later, here's a unicorn, right? So
as much as you have like a lot of wise voices in the space, a lot of VCs have seen this that are kind of pushing this like, hey, this doesn't happen overnight narrative. Like, please don't think that everything needs to hit a bill in a year. Like that's crazy. There's still so many people that have that expectations that are new to either founding, operating, building like companies at any stage that think that is normal, right? Because it's so easy and the media loves to attract attention to the outliers. And you never hear of the Jose stories, which is like, we're still at the 1% of company growth. It just took us 6 years to get there, not overnight, right? Like, I think that's an important part of this narrative too.
100% perseverance, and just having that longevity, right? Sticking through on something for that long and making sure it's a success. You really have to believe in it and pour into the company. So, totally agree.
All right, last topic here, and then we'll wrap. We'll keep this a bit of a shorter episode, but the Next Miami, which a lot of you may know, is a real estate blog that focuses on South Florida real estate. They cover X developer is starting to launch this tower, and any new groundbreaking or big real estate move in Miami, they kind of know about it before anybody else. I believe the blog is still anonymous. Nobody knows who's behind it, but they pump out really good content. And they just had an article a couple of days ago. I don't know if you all saw that Miami may be running out of 305 and 786 phone numbers, and that we're likely to get another area code. This is like code red, right? Like sound the alarms. What will it be?
Did they say, I obviously didn't read the article, but did they say what was driving the growth in and like needing new numbers?
Yeah, I think they alluded to the fact that it's just a natural thing in a growth of a city, right? So like they said each area code can have up to 7.9 million numbers, just statistically. And they are now kind of like we're hitting that natural limit of our 2 area codes, right? I think there's a lot of big cities with more than 2, and I feel like this is a good opportunity for, the community, right? Political leaders, business leaders, civic leader, all of that to just like have a little bit of fun with this. I shamelessly tweeted at Alexis Ohanian and thought that we should have 776 as our area code because of his fun. But what do you all think? What should we have our area code?
I mean, it should be whatever spells out MIA, right? Like, I don't know what that would be. I have to look at a phone. So that would be 642. I don't know if that's already taken.
That's creative. All right.
Because 786 is sun. And
no,
then there's this is
this how area codes work?
Some of them. And like I think 321 is Cape Canaveral because of like the countdown for the launch.
We
yeah, and so like there's a lot of these like clever like
407 for Orlando.
What does 407 stand for? Oh, I don't know. That's nothing.
We love you, Orlando.
But like I was, when you told me this was going to be one of the topics, it's got me thinking. I was like, is this because all these newcomers from New York and California are shedding their old numbers out of shame? No. They don't want to be seen with 415 or 212 numbers here in Miami.
I don't think so. I think at some point, like, listen, how many friends that live here in South Florida do we know that have 212 numbers and 917 numbers? There's just like, there's so many of them, right? Like at some point you have enough invested into a number where you just don't change it if you don't have to. I also think companies and telecom companies, they buy up a lot of numbers. So sometimes there are things like that happen where, they'll do that where, for example, I had a 305 number when I was a kid. When I got my first cell phone, the Nokia with the snake game, right? And then for whatever reason, switched from, I think the first one was Verizon, then I switched to AT&T, which was Singular at the time. Remember Singular?
Shout out Singular.
Singular Wireless, yeah, a little orange dude. And then they were like, oh, we're out of 305s. So I'm like, all right, I'll take a 786.
That was gut-wrenching.
Yeah, that was tough.
When Will Weinrob found out that he could not have a 305 number, like a single tear.
It was a moment.
Came out.
Anyways, nonetheless, took the 786 number, and then so sorry, we're out of 305. But then I went to like activate an Apple Watch the other day, and it gave me a 305 number dedicated to the Apple Watch. So you never know; these things like kind of ebb and flow. Yeah.
I remember when I met Maria like 10, 12 years ago. And she was like, oh, my number is 786, blah, 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 blah. Right. And I was like, did you not grow up here? Like, did you just move here? How did you end up with a 786 number?
Yeah. Random.
Yeah.
I think like anyone who ever had Metro PCS had to get a
there was a moment where cell phone, if you were switching cell phone providers, you could not carry over the number.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I remember that.
Before number portability. Yeah.
Right. That was the thing that was introduced 5 years later or whatever the case may be. So if you wanted to switch from Verizon to AT&T, you had to get a new number. So I think a lot of us got left behind in that transfer.
I feel like we need to have fun with this. Like there should be like a tournament. Everyone should pick a team, right? What number did you suggest earlier, Brian? What was your 642?
641, right? Or 642, you're right.
Yeah, 642. Team 642, whole campaign. Like if we're trying to bring the Olympic Committee over here or something and just duke it out.
I think we should try and get a 305 number on Twilio and make it a voicemail box for the show. And it'll be one of the last 305 numbers available, but then people can leave us voice messages of things they want to like feedback, right? It could be like 305 Tech Pod or whatever,
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe we need to try a call-in show. Like, you know how like David Sachs launched that app Call-In? Maybe we need to like try an episode where we have people call in. Old school.
You can, well, we can with StreamYard here. We can actually pipe it right into our Twitters and go live, and then we can actually Twitter.
All right. Got to figure it out.
Yeah.
We need to get David Sachs on the show because he's moving to Miami too.
Yes.
So, or the whole, I think the whole All In crew. You know, it would be a big bump for their ratings. You know, from number 1 to number 1.
It would be is all of them moving to Miami. All of them.
Not unclear. Unclear.
I think 2 out of the 4, maybe.
I have some inside info that I'll share with you guys after the after the episode.
The alpha.
All right, guys. I think we're good. This was episode 47. We will be with you next week. We'll have an exciting guest. We don't have one lined up yet. I'm just saying that right now.
You're manifesting it.
I'm manifesting it out there. But have a good weekend, guys, and we'll be with everyone next week. Thanks for tuning in.